onto the headstock, and I've chosen that sort of machine head because I think the shape of it, the angular shape of it, better suits the headstock and the theme of the guitar more than the rounded ones anyway. So because the headstock of the guitar ever so slightly rounded around the edges, it left a little bit of a glue line. It came out better on the other side. I could put a bevel on it, that might get rid of it, but I'm not too worried. I think I'm just going to give it a final sand and get some lacquer on it. Oh yeah, and also I've got this truss rod cover. I'd have preferred something maybe more angular or something, but this is what I've got. So that's what I'll use. At least it's chrome. So that's the neck, good progress. And then body wise, I've rubbed out all the filling that I did. You can kind of see that it comes out a little bit darker than the wood does, even though it's the shavings, the sawdust from this very timber. But I'm hoping that that's because of the glue. I'm hoping that by the time I put some lacquer on it and it all gets a bit of wet, that the colour of the timber will be closer then to the colour of the filler. But a word of caution, if you do use this method of filling, i.e. the sawdust from the timber mixed with some sort of hard setting glue, it takes a little bit of rubbing out. It takes quite a lot of rubbing out. It's not like a bit of polyfiller or something, or even plastic wood. This is a lot harder, and if you're not careful, if you're sanding, say with a sanding block that's got a bit of sponge on it, because the timber is now softer than the filler that you made, you're in danger of it wearing away the timber quicker than the filler, and you end up with it being proud no matter what you do. So you're better off with a sanding block, a block of wood that you put the sandpaper around, and no sponge, no sort of softness, no bushing. Otherwise, I've rounded the corners a little and rounded the edge on the back. I haven't yet done that on the front, but I fully intend to, because it's a lot more attractive and it just feels a bit nicer rather than a sharp edge, and presumably a lot nicer on your knee. So I've got a bit more rubbing out to do, then one more final rub out with a lighter gauge of sandpaper, and then on to the lacquer stage. Usually I assemble the thing first and then take it apart and finish it. The danger is that I have to do some more adjustment or something and then I can damage the finish. So maybe I'll assemble it all as a dry run first. Time will tell. I shall keep you posted. As you may be able to see, I've given it one coat of varnish. It's still a little sticky. I'll give you a look at the body of it. See how gorgeously red this thing is. It's just like the sort of sideboards, your writing desks that your granny had. That dark, rich dark mahogany. Deep brown furniture everywhere. Sucking all the light. But I like the antique look. It's great. I'm really chuffed with it. And you can see that I've rounded all the top of it now. And I really like the way that the rounding of the corners and the top and bottom softens the harshness of the angularity. Anyhow, it's coming together. I can see myself playing this thing soon. There's no more creaks or groans from the body anymore. It's all nice and tight now. But what I've decided to do is to go ahead and put all the furniture on, by which I mean all the hardware, the metal hardware, work out where it's all going and drill the little holes for the screws, and then set it up and then dismantle it again for a final finish later. I was going to point out one of the reasons why I cut the headstock down a little bit is because I was worried that the back angle of the head would mean that when it was on the body, if you have it flat on its back and it strikes the floor or the table first, then it puts an awful pressure on this joint here, on the weakest point. Whereas if it's laying flat on its back and the headstock clears the table or the floor, and then there isn't. And that's one of the reasons I made this as deep as I did. And one of the reasons why I cut more off the headstock. But fully down, it just about clears that. And if not, I can even feather the back of the head there. I can put a bevel on the back of the headstock and may still yet do. So you see why I'm not going to go ahead and completely finish it. There may be more adjustments to be made, and there may be more damage done in the process. So no final finish yet. But today I was thinking of oiling this neck. I don't want to lacquer it because it's going to have steel wound strings on it, so they'll just wear away at the lacquer. There's a little point. I'm going to oil it. I'm not entirely sure what oil you're supposed to use. I could look it up, but as ever I'm using what I've got, and I've got two choices. I've got some teak oil, or I've got some Danish oil, and I don't really know the difference. Some of these things have lacquer in them, so it's kind of like an oil and lacquer mix. Anyway, I'm going to go with the Danish oil. It's at hand. Oh no, I can't use that. Oh no, it's all turned to jelly in the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. It's all lumps of jelly. Stuck to the bottom. Right, change of plan. I'm going to use a little teak oil. Bear with me. So I've got some teak oil, what I'm going to oil the fingerboard with, fretboard. Fingerboard doesn't have frets, and the fretboard does. Clues in the name. Well, it's really runny, this stuff, so I've got to be careful with it. You don't need too much. Yeah, that felt wet. Start with that anyway. So it's going to need a few coats. And I didn't want to do this before I'd done the lacquering, at least one coat, because the lacquer wouldn't stick to the oil. And if this were to dribble around or whatever, once it's got into the wood, you can't really get it out again. So it's definitely the right order. Do the lacquer first, or at least a coat of lacquer, before you oil your fretboard. Before you oil your fretboard. I'm not going to use very much, so it's going to soak in. It already has here, look. I might be able to come back and give it a second or third coat almost straight away. And it did look very dry, this timber. It's a rosewood, by the way. A rosewood fretboard with frets. Well, you can see by how quickly that's absorbing this that it clearly needed it. So it'll never quite give you the wet look of a varnish. Always going to be a matter finish. Yeah, so I can go around and start doing these almost straight away. So I'm going to do this a few times. Probably needn't bore you with it much. And and I'll get back to you when I'm doing anything more interesting. Okay, you get the gist.